D track, that's where you're supposed to be. Our presentation this morning is from Bruno Larbel from the Larbel Group, and trends in KOL mapping and tracking from clinical publication activities to social media. It sounds like a great opportunity for us to hear things that really move from clinical into the social space. And so we're looking forward to this, and we'll take questions, I'm sure, afterwards.
Yes.
So great, then we will begin.
Thank you very much, Mira. And talking about question, I'll have one question, and then the two best answers will get a Starbucks $20 card. So it's pay you away. And my colleagues told me I would not be allowed to discriminate against vendors. So if the vendors is I tried, but the other thing is that James from our team is going to stream live this presentation on Facebook Live, so, if Wi-Fi allows. So can you hear me okay? Can you understand my accent? When I started my career in New York, I had an accent reduction coach. And it didn't work out too well. So KOL mapping and tracking. So how many of you already knows everything about who we are, Larbel, and what we do? So I'm going to say just a few words. We are a pharmaceutical CI secondary tracking company. We don't do any primary work. We don't do any projects. We sell subscription to a secondary monitoring solutions, clinical, regulatory, commercial, financial analysis, anything secondary. That's what we do. Initially, we actually were not in KOL tracking, and then a couple of years ago, one of our customers came to us and asked us to do KOL tracking, and that became actually a nice business for us, and therefore we have decided to present on that topic today. And I'm going to talk about trends in, I think, Rick, the same problem that happened before. It doesn't seem to click to the next. I might need to mime my slides. We'll see. So I'm going to talk about trends in the KOL field. Thank you. So trends in the KOL field, vendors in the KOL field, and then I'm going to do a demo about two products, two solutions that we have developed. One is an established solution, a KOL tracking solution, secondary data tracking, and the other one is a database that we have developed, which is still in beta testing, but which is called Pharma CI Prague. And we'll show a use case about how to use our database to profile KOL. Not necessarily to map influence of KOL, there's a lot of vendors doing that, but to profile them. Oh, and another thing is that, again, with my colleague, we talked about giving for everybody in the audience who's not the vendor, free access to our database. And I think he said 3 months, but since he cannot react, I'll say 1 year. So you'll see what it is, but pay attention. So if you're interested, see me at the end, and we'll sign you up for 1 year to Pharma CI. I'll deal with it later on. Okay, so starting with trends. So KOL, dealing with KOLs is not typically with data. Can we help our colleagues in R&D or in med affairs, etc., with their needs with regard to KOL? And as we did that, we noticed a number of trends that have emerged. First, the work of the medical science liaison, the MSL, became tougher and tougher, and more burden, compliance burden, regulatory burden on them. They used to be able to present data to their KOL. They used to be directly involved in enrolling them into clinical trial effort, but now it's becoming harder and harder. They cannot present data as much or at all. And with regard to enlisting them or getting them into investigator-sponsored trial, in many cases, they just have to direct the KOL to a site, and then the KOL fill in the form for regulatory compliance, for compliance reasons. So the work of MSL became harder and harder. They might visit their KOL 3 times in a year, but measuring success. Measuring their work is not as easy as it used to be. They don't have a very easy matrix to know how well they're doing. So any interaction they have with KOL, they need a lot of tools to justify their visit or to know what to talk about. And this is in part why people came to us and say, can you track all KOL activities? And I'll discuss our KOL tracking in a moment. Another trend is social media, and I'll talk about social media in more details in a moment. In a way, the way KOL evolved now becomes very driven by social media. Increasingly, young KOLs are emerging in social media, so it's a different way for them to exert their influence and also to identify them. I'm going to talk about existing vendors in a second, but first let me mention the question for the reward cards. I found that the term KOL even was challenged in some ways. Many companies don't like it. They say thought leaders, some key experts, or they drop the K, the opinion leader. There is some odd language unease about the term KOL. And I heard that even KOLs themselves, in some cases, don't want to be called KOL. And so my question for the two cards is, why did the KOL say, we don't want to be called KOL? I'm not saying that's the case for all KOLs, but some said that. So the two best answers will get the two cards. You can start thinking about it. So existing vendors, two groups, some of you might be familiar with them. One of them is actually here, Vox. They have one product in the field of KOL tracking. And of course, more service-oriented companies. So on the left, the data and software vendors. How many of you have heard about Viva? Viva. So Viva emerged as a very big player in cloud solutions, and one of their products is a KOL tracking solution. They have a big CRM focusing on pharma. They grew very nicely. So Viva is a big player there. So, by the way, any questions about the vendor field of KOL services? But do you think we forgot anybody important?
What kind of company could be GLG?
GLG. I don't know GLG.
Okay, we can talk about it.
We'll check. Anybody know GLG?
GLG Gerson Linder?
Exploit database.
Oh, Gerson Newman? Yes. So they're providing KOL services, and I know they got in trouble some time ago because of insider trading, sort of enabling with investors, but I think they're still doing something. Any other questions or points? Okay. So the data sources, no surprise there, of course, clinical trial databases, conference information, especially when you can get to the disclosure level and the affiliation part of the conference. You scrape that information. There's a lot of good data there, publications, obviously, and Sunshine Act, obviously, MSL interaction, data coming from the MSL themselves, and social media. And social media, as I mentioned, in our view, is really one of the trends, one of the upcoming elements. And in some cases, it's odd because the influence of some of these is not as dependent about the institutions they're part of. Some of these influencers have a lot of influence in social media, on Twitter and YouTube, even if they might not be part of a very prestigious organization. So some people have used the term digital opinion leaders to describe that emerging group of maybe younger KOLs. That my bet is that digital opinion leaders is going to be the future, is going to be really the way KOL build, maintain, and exert their influence. So looking at ways to map, which is not what we're doing, but to certainly track and even engage when compliance allows you to KOLs or DOLs is a big deal. One player in that field I want to mention is Simpler. How many of you have heard of Simpler? Yeah, one or two. So they do some very nice work on Twitter. You can look at any conference and see the top influencers for that conference. And they have a few other tools. So I recommend checking out what they do. as it relates to social media, simpler. Okay. So now I'm going to pause for a second, see if there's any questions regarding my presentation so far, and then I will shift towards describing the two solutions I mentioned at the beginning of the course. So, any questions, comments so far from the audience? Or from anybody on Facebook Live who is following us? If they leave comments, you can tell me.
I will.
Okay. So, two products that I want to present. The first one is KOL tracking, and the second one is Larval Sigma. As I said, we have an offer for 1 year free service of Larval Sigma, and with regard to KOL tracking, we will also do a free customized pilot on KOL tracking. So initially, we were not in KOL tracking, and then an important customer of ours came to us and said, can you do what you do with asset tracking, secondary asset tracking, and apply the same methodology to KOLs? So our day job was to take a list of assets in multiple myeloma, and anything regulatory, anything commercial, anything published, any financial analyst report, any slide presented at JP Morgan, anything that can be found, anything in social media, we include in our feed, in our alert, in our weekly updates, in our database. That was our day job. That's still our day job. And that customer said, can you apply the same methodology to KOL tracking? And so the way it works is that we're given typically a list of KOLs. Sometimes we build it, but most of the time we're given a list of 50, 100, 200 key opinion leaders. And what we do is that, and that's a process that is mostly manual. Our analysts are triaging that information. What we do is that any, of course, conference that they participate in, any clinical trial activity, any social media, YouTube, Twitter activity, any CME, any grand round, anything that these KOLs do, we include, summarize, tag, link, and we even give it an impact rating. In some cases, we've been asked to even give a plus or minus, an assessment of the sentiment behind that KOL communication. It's increasingly tricky from a compliance or perception standpoint. So this is actually not something we do commonly. And so every week we send to our customer a tracker like this. They use it when they engage with a KOL to have perhaps material to discuss, perhaps even to send an email to have some kind of engagement opportunity with a KOL. So before I shift to the second product, I'm going to see if there's any questions regarding tracking, regarding KOL tracking.
So you offer free period to access this?
Would you repeat that?
So you offer a free trial period to access
Yes.
this?
So the offer is to have a free pilot of this service. So this is a customized approach. We take your list, and our analyst, for a period of a month, pilot, will actually prepare that weekly report for you for a period of a month.
Okay.
And that's only for the people attending today.
So, do you provide help with the engagement of the KOLs as well, or you just provide the data?
Thank you, John, for the question. We do not get involved with engagement at all. So we only provide the tools for engagement and the context for a conversation that people might have with a KOL. We do not engage ourselves at all.
So have you spoken with them? Do you do some vetting, or is it just
We don't talk with them. Most of the cases, we do not do the KOL mapping exercise. We do some sample profiling, which is the next part of the presentation. But we're not an influence mapper building the link between Dr. Smith and Dr. Judy and etc.
No, not link, but would you at all verify availability or talk to them before you provide the information?
So what your question, which is very interesting, talks to how do you select truly influential KOLs. This first tool mostly is not doing that. So for these first services, we take the list from our customers. The customer tells us, these are the 50 people we want you to track. Put a low jack under their car, and whatever they do, tell us. The second product is going to touch on that a little bit. How do you profile KOL, at least from a clinical trial activity, to decide who is really influential?
Do you advance this insight with a next step in terms of if they write an opinion on something, are you able to bridge to that topic and see if additional chatter on the topic is brewing besides just KOL mapping?
So right now we do not. We do not. So we do not have a so what, and we do not connect the fact that Dr. Smith just said something about this product to other conversations. It would be quite valuable, and we might look at it, but right now we're not doing that. Any other question regarding tracking, and then?
How frequently do you update it? You said that you make the list and then you'll send it out in a weekly newsletter. So it can be assumed that every week you're updating it manually?
And by updating, do you mean updating the list of KOLs or the other news? Other development?
Actions around the KOL.
So what you receive as a customer every week is anything new that happened the previous week.
Okay.
So we do not, when we are building now an archive database behind all of this, but the push to our customer is anything new in a particular week.
Excellent.
So it looks like you're looking at the social medias and clinical trials. Do you also look at, say, the literature and the patents to see if that KOL also is producing any of those and tie those into the
So
media as well?
the patents right now, no. The literature, yes. Okay. So let me move to the second part, and then we'll have more time for Q&A as well. So this is a one for which there's a one-year offer to try it for free. So this is called larval sigma, and what you can do, you type a disease. Let's say you're interested in non-small cell lung cancer. So we have 5,000 diseases indexed. So you find the disease, non-small cell lung cancer, and then you have the top disease, the top company, the top product, top MOA, and the top investigators / KOL for that disease. So you click on investigators, and again we have that, as I said, for 5,000 diseases, and you have the top KOLs. The bar graph is the number of trials in non-small cell that these people are involved in. You can search by just US, or you can filter that list further. Now, then you click on, let's say, Dr. Spiegel, and you've got all of the trials Dr. Spiegel is involved with in a trial tracker, with the data that has been released, anything new that happened in red with these trials. So it's a way to get, and then you click one more time, you get to the source of the data, clinicaltrials.gov. So that's a search when you start with a disease, and we'll see a couple of other searches when you start with a company or an MOA. But this is the first search you can do. It's only clinical data, so you get only one type of cut into how people have influence. That picture doesn't include social media influence or publication or patent influence. You can search by entering, let's say, let's look at the second case. So let's say you're interested in a mechanism of action. So you enter, or a product, Humira. So you enter a product and you want to say, who are the top KOLs who are working on clinical trials on this product? So same thing, you've got the profile of Humira, the top investigators. You look at the top investigators ranked by the number of trials. You can change to active trial, you can change by geographic area. And then you select that KOL, that top investigator. Let's say Dr. Armstrong or any of the other. And then you will have a profile of that KOL with the top diseases that KOL is involved with, the top companies that KOL is involved with, and all of the clinical trials that KOL is involved with. So same type of trial tracker as the one we saw earlier. So this is a database that we have built. Some of you might have seen a version of this before, and this is one of the use cases of larval sigma, focusing on KOL. So Dr. Armstrong, you can see his, and you can also see news related to Dr. Armstrong, news having to do with clinical trials news, or PubMed news, it is also included there. So that Humira, you can do the same with mechanism of action, and I'll pass on that to leave more time for question, MEC or PD-1, PS1. And so that's essentially our two products. So KOL tracking, and then larval sigma, which enables the identification and the profiling of top KOLs based on clinical trial activity. Most customers would take that information and also look at social media influence and patents and publications. So I want to pause, and before I get to how much time, where are we in time?
7 minutes.
Okay. I want to make sure there's a chance to ask a question about the Starbucks cost. So, but before that, any questions about either larval sigma or the trackers? Yes?
I just want to make sure I understood you clearly. It seems like you can go into larval sigma and type in the name of an asset and understand the KTLs that are involved in the current clinical trials.
Correct. Yes. Now, the data, the result of that list is as good as the data that comes from clinicaltrials.gov and university. So we do not manually create the link between opinion leaders and the product or disease.
So 2 questions. Do you have like a name disambiguation kind of algorithm that you use? And then the second question is, what if it just says lead investigator for BMS?
Okay, so 2 great questions. When you say lead investigator for BMS, we do not have an answer for that. We just cannot go further.
More digging to try to
We do
find
not.
out what it is.
We do not. Now, we do have built heuristics in our system to differentiate between Bob Smith, Robert L. Smith, and Rob Smith based on the name and the institutions, etc. So we do a certain amount of deducting, disambiguation. I was hoping I wouldn't have to say the word disambiguation. That's okay. So we do some of that, and we plan to invest more in doing even more of that.
On your KOL tracking for small companies, so we might give you, a part of the list, but is there a way that you could also help supplement our list?
Yes. So what we would do is that we would use larval sigma, but also our team of analysts to propose, and based on literature, based on, of course, social media as well, to propose a list. Now, this would not be based on a full influence mapping. And that's what really other vendors do. So we do not do a deep dive into mapping out the influence between Dr. Smith and Dr. Bob, etc.
You focused on as a provider KOLs. Can you also do payer KOLs?
That's a great clue. Let's write it down. And patient advocacy.
Yes.
Is that what you meant? Or you mean?
Well, specifically payers, and then
Right.
another question would be like other organized customer groups.
So we haven't, but Roger Longman during the keynote speaker was talking about how much the EQ of a disease impacts how much of a market opportunity it is. So these online community of patient advocates are increasingly important, and so mapping that is going to be very valuable.
So you do that, or you don't?
Not yet,
Okay.
but it's on the list now.
Yeah.
For the KOL profiling, is that limited to only clinical trials, or do you also track the publication, presentation in medical conferences?
In the current state, it's only clinical trials.
Okay.
The news, we have a news section that includes PubMed, but we do not use PubMed information to do the ranking right now.
Okay.
So the ranking, the top, it should be really described as the top KOLs, the investigator KOLs.
In terms of geography, are you mainly looking at US and EU or Asia?
So for larval sigma, the database, the sources is clinicaltrials.gov and Udacity. So so that's our limit. And we have filters for each geographies that we can scrape from these databases. For our tracking solution, anything in English language from any geography will be covered.
But if you have to say, where your main focus would that be in Europe and US, or?
Well, it turns out that that's most of the development events news are, but it's not by design. It's just because that's where most of the activity right now for our customers is taking place.
Okay, and every KOL in your database has a location assigned to
They do.
her as well. So
Yes.
you could say, I'm looking at, you can filter for geography as well.
We could.
Okay.
We could. Yes. So any other question? Then we'll see who gets the Starbucks.
How do you normalize mechanism of action?
I love that question because I love mechanism of actions. Everybody's making fun of me in the company for that, but I love mechanism of actions. So we have developed our own taxonomy of mechanism of actions. We have right now about 1,000 of mechanism of action organized in terms of general. So we will have PDL1 as a general, and then the different types under PDL1. And so that's how we really organize our data, both in terms of KOL link, but anything else that we deal with in our system. Thank you.
How far back are you indexing the trial information? How many years back?
We have the whole database, I think. Yeah.
We've been indexing it since 2010.
Okay.
But yeah, and we regularly index it every day ever since then.
Right, so what we have indexed all the changes since 2010, but all of the data available, the legacy data from all the trials. We have a lot of trials that have been finished for a long time. They're still discoverable in our database in case anybody would be interested. Okay, so I very much appreciate all the great questions and engagement. This is wonderful. So, and again, even the vendors can play, but the question was, why wouldn't KOLs want to be called KOLs? Even if you don't have exactly the answer, whatever is closer or most interesting would win the $20 stocks.
Cliche. It's a cliche.
It's a cliche. Okay, so that would be one. That would be one answer. Maybe a winner.
Maybe they don't.
Burden? Is that again?
To feel the burden of being.
Maybe because you get harassed, and because people want to know your opinion, so you spend a lot of time answering to things that are not technically your.
Yes, the burden of being a KOL. Yes, so.
Maybe they don't want to offend their colleagues or not.
They're modest. They don't all too much.
They don't want to be harassed for market research calls constantly.
Yes, so time. Yamina?
Maybe because KOLs are seen as providing an opinion when actually they are seen as, they want to be seen as experts in their field and with actual facts. on a certain topic rather than just opinion. So
Okay, okay, so I'll say, a few more, then I'll say the two closest.
I'd say they could be wrong. And therefore, they could be wrong, and therefore their image is, overnight changed.
Oh, so they don't want to be exposed as a KOL, then they're wrong, then, well, the KOL said that, and
Right.
they won't, yes, yes.
I think the leader word, so again, it's a team effort with colleagues, and as we go more towards guidelines and things like that, it's more of a consensus-driven perspective.
Yes. There's a lot of great idea, by the way. Some I didn't hear, but that makes a little sense.
I think it may have to do with the word opinion. They don't want to be seen as giving an opinion. They want to be seen as giving something more concrete or firm in terms of.
Okay, so let me stop the contest now because we have two winners already. And the two winners are you and Yamina. The reason they don't want to be called KOL is that this is not an opinion. This is a truth. This is a fact. What do you mean? It's just my opinion and then John might have a different opinion? No. It's a truth. It's a fact. So at least some KOL are sensitive to be just surveyed as just someone's opinion. So you can both get your card. I want to thank all of you. You've been wonderful. Thank you.
Do I sign up with you to get access to?
If you want to announce that.
Yes, and just a reminder, anybody interested in the 1-year deal?
How do I sign up?
See us
Just
now,
with me, I'll
or in the
follow up.
pilot with the tracking.